Hi everyone, it's Jerry. Let's have a look at a game from the 2018 Candidates Tournament. This is the tournament that will decide who will challenge Magnus Carlsen for the title later this year, come November. 8 players competing in the candidates. The game we're going to have a look at is from round 1. On the white end, Fabiano Caruana. He's paired against Wesley So. This is a double round-robin event, so 14 total rounds. And time controls. As you can see on the right, each player begins with 100 minutes. Should move 40 be met, you would gain an additional 50 minutes. Should move 60 be met, you would gain an additional 15 minutes. And lastly, there is a 30-second increment throughout. So let's dive into this one and see what happened. Caruana opening with d4. Knight f6 on board. What opening exactly? Catalan. Bishop b4 check. Black inconveniences the queen bishop, and only then drops back, so bishop kind of gets in the way. The knight, queen. Continuing now on the king side some. Both sides get their kings tucked away. This is not a threat to win a pawn. He'll be scooped up in just a couple. However, after c6, this may be a threat, so some security is provided. Queen to b3. It is, guarding the pawn from the side. Going to c2, well, the knight may interfere if he goes to c3. So queen to b3 to defend c4. Knight b to d7, bishop f4. Typical idea, just expanding some on the queen side. a5 is desirable. In fact, if you're curious at all about this position and thinking about good bishops and bad bishops, this is the bad bishop, this is the good bishop. Why not go for something like this? Well, as mentioned, a5 is desirable. You'd be running into an a5 move with tempo now. So there's maybe a bit of a timing issue. Yes, you would get this exchange in, but is it worth the time? It's the other thing to question. In the game, it's bishop to f4, a5, rook to d1, knight h4, can't allow that exchange, so bishop goes all the way back home, knowing that, well, black's going to have to just return to f6, and, well, that's what we have. Straight away, knight to f6. And from here, it's knight b to d2. So this is move 12, and this is one of the first moments in the game that certainly grabbed my attention. And it just seems a little bit awkward to play the knight to d2, obstruct the bishop, obstruct the rook. So why go to d2? What's the issue with knight to c3? Knight to c3 would interfere with the queen support of c4. Right? This was the idea with queen to b3, to lend support to c4. What's the issue? If the knight goes to c3, there can be the move a4, and you can't capture a4 now. Well, there's this little trick. Chop could be met with chop, and you can't recapture on c4 because you'd end up in a fork. So this is a nice little tactic to be familiar with out of this opening. So it's knight to d2 instead. Continuing, we have b5, and now c5. So white grabs some space here. You can't win a pawn in reply to b5. Taking twice on this square would allow bishop to a6, and then the e-pawn would be won. I'd like to highlight this variation because not all pawns are equal, that's for sure. Right? Without the e, this isn't just any pawn that white has just lost. If there's no e-pawn, what piece is influenced greatly? The bishop on g2. He'll forever be biting on a rock. This e-pawn is necessary in order for this bishop's presence to be felt. This is not a wise choice to go in for, winning the b-pawn and giving up your center pawn, your e-pawn. So c5, some space. This is the first pawn planted in the enemy camp, and black is going to say, yeah, I could do similar. b4, queen c2. This is multi-purpose move. For one, prepping e4, There's now 2 pieces on that, and also lending some support to c5. This is a point that can soon be undermined. This is the one pawn break that is right around the corner, so for both sides, this is where the pawn breaks can happen. e4 for white, e5 for black. Continuing, we have a4, rook to e1, and now here comes e5. White could also look to strike first in the center with e4, but decides on rook to e1 and is prepared with black playing e5 and the ensuing structure. I think it's a bit of a matter of taste, or actually here's the one variation that may have kept Caruana away from playing e4 at this stage, and it's that there's the move b3. If e4 instead of rook to e1, the move in the game, b3 can hit, and after a capture, what do you do here as white? Your rook is unprotected, the queen is hit, and if you take on b3 with the knight, there's knight takes e4. So this is a move, the move b3 is what may have kept Caruana from playing e4 at this moment. So a little bit more prep work, in other words, rook to e1, so that when e4 is in there, there's now a third defender on that square. Black strikes first in the center. e5 it is. Knight takes e5 first, ensuring that the bishop's eyes will be opened. Knight takes knight, pawn takes, knight to d7. Black will be winning the pawn back. So the big question here is who is, benefiting as a result of this structure change. Knight f3. This is a wonderful square. The bishop is now free to move. This position has opened up some, so let's ensure that the queenside pieces can be developed. After knight to f3, we have move 18, bishop to c5. At first glance, when reviewing this, at first glance of the computer engine, it was saying bishop takes c5, fine move, okay move, one of the better moves. However, this is where there's an issue. It's not much, but how white follows up from this point on makes life very difficult for Team Black. In fact, I'll throw a pop quiz your way. What is Caruana's next move in this position? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, there's no wonderful tactic here. There's no win of material, this is provoking weaknesses, White's next move. Knight g5 follows. What is this doing? Well, it's threatening mate on h7. How do you defend mate? The move in the game. g6. This is an issue. I don't have any concrete variation that I could show you that's going to be wonderful for white. I can only share something that's, a bit abstract. Here's what I could say about this position. There's a lot of pieces on board. Only one pawn and one knight have been exchanged. And to make the move g6 and have 2 holes now in Black's camp, that's a problem. That's going to be a problem at some point with so many pieces still on board. If you compare the king positions, this is a wonderful structure and a master defender on g2. Now, another move at this point, this is the move in the game. Computer recommends rook to e8, not even capturing straight away, just keeping the option open. Maybe the knight, maybe the bishop. Still keep a watchful eye over the knight g5 move, and maybe even, very computer-like moves, rook to a5, applying more pressure to c5. Yeah, it likes knight takes instead. And there's a difference here. Knight to c5, if knight g5 in this position, Black could at least reason, g6 not only defends, but at least there'll be something of value, development-wise. Bishop f5 can strike with tempo. Anyhow, I just want to highlight one of the differences. between a bishop captures on c5 versus a knight captures. Bishop takes on c5 in the game. Knight g5 follows. g6. And white gets on with some more development. Bishop f4. Queen b6. Oh, by the way, this is a very tempting move. After knight to g5 and g6, if this was like a bullet position, this is like one of the top moves that quickly screams out to you. You already see one weakness with g6, and you think, yes, I'm gonna crack open the king position once more with e6, hitting with the fork. Well, there would be an issue with that. You can't do e6, as tempting as that is. Why? After chop chop, this all looks so wonderful for white, right? But let's not forget, there's a super sensitive point in white's camp, f2, struck at twice, and the winning move here for black would be queen to f6. What are you doing? You're resigning, basically. Knight takes rook is leading to a checkmate in 3. Careful, you can't play e6 here. Bishop f4. Queen b6 follows. f2 is hit. How do you defend? Something lame like that? Absolutely not. e4. Queen defends, and the bishop wants to see the world. e4 is in. His presence will be felt. b3. Chop chop. Queen e2. Bishop a6, queen f3. Do you see what's happening here? Material is equal, but let's take a look at the queenside pieces. For black, there's a lot happening on the queenside, but where's the action here for the white pieces? It's on the king side. You might as well let me highlight the e5 pawn. This is going to be a battering ram. e6 wasn't good at that very tempting moment. Instead of move 20, bishop f4, e6 wasn't good on move 20. But a move or two later could certainly be very good. There's a problem here. e6 is right around the corner. Pressure on f7. Pressure on d5. Bishop c4 in the game, lending some support to d5. And now we have rook takes rook. Normally you wouldn't want to do something like this, but this is a rich position. This is a sharp position, tactical position. Why do I say you normally wouldn't want to do something like this? Well, you're taking a rook that's on a closed file and bringing it to an open file, but this is a key defender. He's no longer around to watch over the sensitive point f7, so now here comes e6. King side is getting broken down. Wesley replies with d takes e4. This is opening the bishop to defend f7, so kind of a interesting approach with the bishop pivoting on c4, and now he's around to secure some kingside squares. Pawn takes pawn with check. Bishop recaptures, and the knight is recapturing. Material is balanced, but the black king is naked. We have a wonderful structure. Again, a master bishop on g2, and white is essentially attacking for free. No cost connected with this attack. No material invested. And there isn't enough coordination for black. There's no great harmony. There's some great depth with this b3 pawn, but the b2 pawn is never going to fall, and he's never going to be passed. How do you defend the king is the big question for Team Black. Let's see what's tried. Bishop d4, knight to d6. There's threats of capturing the bishop and then moving the bishop with the discover check. Bishop d5 in the game, queen e2. And now there's the threat to simply exchange bishops and sweep into e6. This is already well busted for black. Knight f8 in the game. Bishop takes with check. Pawn takes. Queen to f3 eyes up d5, and indirectly she's very close to sweeping into f7. Queen a5 defends d5, but after move 33, throwing a pig on the 7th rank. Game over. Black resigns. There's no good defense to a bishop h6 move and a queen slipping into f7. For example, anticipating this kind of pressure on the 7th rank, trying to neutralize the 7th rank pressure, that's no good. Bishop h6. Now there's a mate threat here. And what do? If you move the knight, you would lose to check, and then checkmate. And suppose one other variation, bishop h6, queen back here to defend. Give a check, and a checkmate. There's simply no good defense in this position after rook to e7. So Wesley So resigns here. So if you're curious at all about the tail of the tape on this one, let me bring it up. Here we go. Yeah, an advantage throughout for Fabiano Caruana, and really the big moment here is around that move 18. Bishop takes c5. Yeah, that's where we see a bit of a spike and a bit of a growing advantage from there. And looking at the inaccuracies, mistakes, blunders for each side, Caruana, triple zeros, 14 average centi-pawn loss, and 3 2s for Wesley So, 42 average centi-pawn loss. So Caruana is off to a wonderful start, and feel free in the comment section below who you are rooting for or who you think is going to win. I'll include in the description all the other competitors' names, and yeah, feel free to cast your vote in the comment section below. So as usual, feel free to leave any feedback, and I hope you enjoyed this video. That's all for now. Take care.